Welcome to Syntax, a Generative Introduction, 4th edition. My name is Andrew Carnie. I'm a professor of linguistics at the University of Arizona. I'm the author of your textbook, and I'll be leading you through this series of video tutorials. In this final set of videos, we're going to talk about some recent approaches to syntactic theory that are different than the classic approaches we've talked about elsewhere in the book. In particular, we're going to talk about theories that are expressed within what is called the Minimalist Program. Minimalism is an idea that is effectively a program for making decisions about how you do syntax based on certain criteria that are not necessarily empirical ones. Empirical criteria are criteria like, is it a good explanation for the data or not? A program takes a broader view. A program takes a view like, what makes a theory a good theory, in addition to the data you're looking at. You obviously have to continue doing empirical inquiry. The Minimalist Program was proposed by Chomsky in the early 1990s, so it has quite a history now. But we're going to look at some of the key ideas around one particular aspect in the Minimalist Program, which replaces the X-bar theory we have used. Now, you're no doubt shaking your head and saying, why did I learn X-bar theory if that's the wrong approach? It's not necessarily wrong. And the other thing is that, as you will see, it's very hard actually to read the kinds of representations that the Minimalist Program proposes for sentence structure. So as a consequence, it actually turns out that people, even if they're working extensively within the Minimalist Program, still use X-bar theory when they're writing their papers. Simply because it's easier to read than the kinds of diagrams I'm going to show you now. So it's really important to understand X-bar theory, even though it is considered to be an older theory. All right, so the program we have under minimalism does two things. It's a little bit like a supercharged version of Occam's razor. Occam's razor says, what is the simplest hypothesis? If you've got a complicated hypothesis and a simple hypothesis, Occam's razor says always go for the simple one. And that's certainly true of minimalism. But minimalism has a little extra twist, which is it asks the question, can you make the tools you use in your syntactic theory fall out from other things, general principles, or basic ideas in mathematics or science? So we're going to look particularly about how the Minimalist Program might address these issues in X-bar theory. We're going to ask, do you really need all those extra bar levels that you have to put in? Because those are the things that sort of make you scratch your head and wonder if X-bar theory is on the right track. And the other thing is, we are going to ask, can we make the rules fall out from something more general? And what we're going to claim is that, yes, we can make them fall out from set theory. Okay, so the version of merge we're going to talk about here is called external merge. We will talk about the other form of merge in another video. It's called internal merge. External merge means you're taking two things that are outside the sentence, or at least one thing that's outside the sentence, and you're combining it in. Merge does effectively two things. It takes two elements, usually words or phrases, and combines them together into an unordered set. So this is the combinatoric part of X-bar theory. And it also explains why X-bar theory is binary. All the trees you draw only have two branches. Merge only takes two elements and joins them together. The other thing it does is it assigns that set a label. So it says, hey, this is I've taken a verb and a noun phrase, and I'm sticking them together, and I'm going to label this with something like a verb. So let's look at an example of how this looks. It is quite different from what you're used to, so just hold on. It's not actually that different in the long run. So we're going to take two words, loves and the noun phrase Suzette, and we're going to combine them together into an unordered set, loves Suzette. And then we're going to apply a label to that. And the label we choose is the head of the constituent we formed. So the constituent, the verb phrase constituent consists of the verb love and the noun phrase Suzette. We combine those together to form the constituent, and then we say, hey, the thing that is the head of this set is loves. So loves marks the head, or the label of the constituent. Let's do a larger, more complicated example. Hold on. Be careful. Don't panic. This looks very, very different. But I'll show you how this actually corresponds to things you're more used to seeing shortly. So we're going to start off by creating a noun phrase. We're going to take a determiner, or actually a DP, I should say. We're going to take a determiner and a noun phrase like peanuts and merge them together. We put them in a pair of brackets here, and we say these are the two elements inside of our DP. We're going to label it. The head of the DP is the determiner, so there's that determiner there that's acting as the label. Now let's take this element and merge it with a verb. So a verb like eat, so this is eat the peanuts. These are the elements inside this set. There's eat and the peanuts with the label the. So these are the elements that are inside of our, that make up our verb phrase. Because it's a verb phrase, we have to label it, and we're going to choose to take the head element and label the whole constituent with the head. So here's our label, eat. Here's the elements that are inside this set. There's eat and the DP, the peanuts. Now let's merge in a tense node. So let's merge in will. So we've merged in will. These are the two elements that are inside the T-bar. This is a T-bar constituent. The label of the T-bar is going to be the tense node, which is will here. So we get will eat the peanuts. And now you're starting to see what I mean about having to hold on. This is your T-bar, the whole thing you've just seen right here. And now we're going to merge in a subject. And for simplicity's sake, I've made the subject a proper name, so there's not extra stuff in there just to make this a little easier to read. So we're going to merge in Rosita. And Rosita is going to sit in the specifier of the TP. So this is the T-bar, this structure right here. And Rosita is going to be merged with that T-bar. And this one is a little different from the previous ones we've looked at. In the previous ones we've looked at, when you go from just combining the elements together to creating a labeled set, you've been taking the thing on the left and making it the label of the whole constituent. Here, the label of this will not be Rosita. It will be will again, because this is a TP. So the label here is will. This says, hey, I'm a TP. So this is the structure for the sentence, Rosita will eat the peanuts. Now, don't panic, because no syntactician in their right mind would ever actually use this kind of structure as explanatory or even revelatory. When we draw trees, we're doing so because it reveals information about the internal structure of a sentence. And we want something that is visually helpful to the reader to understand the claims we're making. This is not helpful to anyone. So as I've said before, in reality, when you look at papers that are being published today, they don't use this notation. Unless there's actually talking about the way in which external merge itself works. The papers we see now still use X-bar theory. But there is also a tree alternative to this set theory. Recall that trees are graphs in the technical sense, and graph theory is a variant on set theory. So if you've taken any mathematics, you know that there is a correspondence between graphs and sets. And you can, in fact, represent this set as a tree structure. And this will look a lot more familiar. So taking that set and spelling it out this way, we effectively have something that looks a lot more like what you're used to. There are a couple of differences here. You obviously do not have all that extra bar level stuff going on. And that's actually a problem because remember, those bar levels are important. We're going to come back to that in the next video. You'll also notice that there are no categories. So this is written as will. It's not written as a T node. This is written as eat. It's not written as a V node. Similarly, there are actually no distinctions between phrases and heads and bar levels encoded into this tree that you can see immediately. Now that is a problem, as I've mentioned. You actually want to be able to know that this will represents the sentence as a TP, and this will represents the T node itself as the head. So it turns out that back before the minimalist program was proposed, the linguist Peggy Speece suggested that X-bar theory can actually be derived by the domination structural relation. So you can actually tell what a phrase is, what a bar level is, and what a head is simply by looking at what dominates what. So here's the intuition. Something is a phrase if it is dominated by a category that has a different label or isn't dominated by anything. So Rosita here is a noun phrase because it is dominated by will, which is a different category. So therefore, this is a phrase. Will is a phrase because it's not dominated by anything. By contrast, this will, the down here, is dominated by another will, which is dominated by another will. And therefore, this is not going to be a phrase at all. We know that this will is going to be the head of the phrase because it doesn't dominate anything. So this eat is the head, this the is the head, because they don't dominate anything, this one here. This the is dominated by eat, so it's going to be a phrase. It's going to be a DP. It's dominated by a different category. And this eat is going to be a VP because it's dominated by will. And peanuts is going to be a noun phrase. It's going to be a phrase because it's dominated by the. So this is how you get the difference between phrases and heads. Anything that is left over will be a bar level. So this will is dominated by something of the same category. So will is dominated by will. So it's not going to be a phrase. And this will dominates things. So it's not going to be a head. So anything that falls into that category is going to be a bar level. So we can effectively derive X-bar theory simply by looking at the domination relations. If you remember that a phrase is a thing that is dominated by something of a different category or no category, then you can identify these guys. Heads are effectively the things that don't dominate anything, and bars are everything else. An interesting consequence of this is you'll notice that Rosita here and peanuts down here are simultaneously phrases because Rosita is dominated by will, therefore it's dominated by another category. That makes it a phrase, and it's a head. So because it doesn't dominate anything. That's a really neat result, and it actually captures the intuitions that most people have, that Rosita is simultaneously a phrase and a head at the same time. And that's what you want. This allows us to get rid of all that extra junk we had, where we had noun phrase goes to n bar, goes to n, and maybe there was a DP even on top of that. We're able to sort of reduce the amount of structure we're using simply because of this relativized definition, and we allow elements to be ambiguous as to whether or not they are phrases or heads. There's one more thing I want to talk about, which is linear order. These sets we've been looking at have been unordered sets. So they don't actually specify an order between the head and the phrase. You could still use parameters to get this fact. So you could just say English is head complement and Japanese is complement head. Richie Kane, back in a paper in 1994 called The Anti-Symmetry of Syntax, suggested that you can actually derive linear order from asymmetric C command. Effectively, if one element asymmetrically C commands another, then it precedes it. So if we go back to our tree here we had just a second ago, will asymmetrically C commands eat, so will C command, will precede eat. Eat asymmetrically C commands the, so eat will precede the. There are some problems with this approach. One is what happens when you only have a symmetric relationship down here, like down here at the bottom of the phrase, where the C commands peanuts and peanuts C commands the has to end up being linear ordered before peanuts in English. That is a problem with the LCA. Another problem with the LCA is languages like Japanese that put their heads on the right and the complements to the left. They have the same C command relationships that English does. So why aren't these languages ordered the way English does? Kane has suggested that languages like Japanese involve a lot of leftward movement. So for example, you generate complements to heads to the right, just as you would in English, but you end up moving everything to the left of the head. This is still very controversial, and a lot of people have concerns about this. So in the next video, we're going to talk about the problem of the adjuncts and how you identify adjuncts in the structure.